Tom Brady called Jeff George's arm elite, but this dude went 46-78 as a starter. 7 teams gave up on him. So why did Randy Moss call Jeff George his favorite QB ever? Jeff George was born in Indianapolis in 1967, the youngest of 3 brothers. Dave and Randy were 3 and 5 years older. Little Jeff spent his whole childhood trying to prove he belonged with the big kids. His family had deep Indianapolis roots. His grandfather, Joe George, owned the Panda restaurant on West Ohio Street, and the Georges were pillars of the local Arab American community. Jeff wasn't just some kid who happened to be from Indianapolis. The kid had serious talent from day one. "I wish I was the older brother, then I could torture them," George said years later. You can laugh about that, but it makes you the person you are. His brother Dave put it perfectly. Jeff was the youngest, so he had to be competitive. He was always trying to compete with the older guys. By high school, the kid's arm was already crazy good. Warren Central High School, back-to-back state championships, first ever Gatorade National Player of the Year. Ray Sherman, who'd coached in the NFL for decades, called him the most incredible prep QB I'd ever seen. George started college at Purdue, then left when his coach got fired. Moved to Illinois.
3 minutes and 33 seconds to go in the game, and Jeff George drops back to throw it. It's into the end zone. Touchdown to Sean Wax, and the Illini have narrowed it up to 20-15.
Then left with a year left because he got promised he'd be a top 5 pick. This was back when changing colleges wasn't like it is now. His hometown Colts were desperate to bring their golden boy home. They traded Pro Bowl tackle Chris Hinton, star receiver Andre Rison, and multiple picks to Atlanta for the number 1 pick.
Indianapolis selects Jeff George, quarterback from Illinois.
Then they handed George a 6-year, $15 million contract. It was the richest rookie deal in NFL history at the time. In 4 seasons in Indianapolis, George threw over 45 picks to just around 40 TDs. He went 14-35 as a starter. The team went 1-15 in his second year. When backup Jack Trudeau replaced George late in 1992, the Colts suddenly started winning games. Former Colts tackle Kevin Call summed up the locker room anger. From the standpoint of attitude, he just didn't seem to care. Call said there was no room for a Lone Ranger at QB. George held out for 36 days before the 1993 season, demanding a trade. The hometown fans who cheered for him at Warren Central High School now booed him badly. They even heckled his grandmother at home games. The Colts finally traded him to Atlanta in 1994. George actually looked like the QB everyone thought he could be. June Jones's run and shoot offense was perfect for George's cannon arm, especially when he threw bombs to fast receivers. He put up solid numbers. In 1994, he threw for over 3,700 yards and around 23 TDs. The next year was even better. Over 4,100 yards and 24 TDs, leading the Falcons to their first playoff spot since 1991. In that wild card loss to Green Bay, George completed 26 passes for over 360 yards and 2 TDs.
The Falcons' valiant effort dejected, and the Packers live in the playoff hunt.
George looked ready to put it together, but George's agent, Leigh Steinberg, later said the real problem. He'll be the first person to tell you he was not totally mature in Indianapolis. Everything came easy for him there. The number 1 pick, the biggest contract in league history. Success hadn't changed George's basic character. This guy still expected everything to go his way. Then came September 22nd, 1996. Falcons versus Eagles. George had just completed 10 straight passes when he threw a pick. June Jones benched him in the 3rd quarter. What happened next got caught on national TV.
Oakland's looking closer for Jeff George.
And that kind of conversation may seal his fate.
The whole NFL world watched a QB lose his mind on live TV. I guess some of the things I said on the sideline, I'm kind of upset about that, George said afterward. The closest thing to self-awareness he'd ever show. Jones suspended him for the rest of the season. Years later, Jones would become a supporter of George, but at the time, his take was simple. He left me no choice. Everyone was a spoiled QB having a tantrum. The Raiders didn't care. George bounced to Oakland, where his 1997 season was really amazing. He led the NFL in passing yards with over 3,900 yards, threw 29 TDs to just 9 picks. But even when George played his best football, he found ways to make everyone mad. When John Gruden put in a West Coast offense that didn't fit George's skills, George developed his own system. He actually admitted in interviews that he'd follow the coach's plays on first and second down to keep them happy, then completely ignore the call on third down and just chuck it to Tim Brown no matter what.
George hooking up with Tim Brown, 8 yards, 589th career catch.
Every single time, George was playing by his own rules. By 1999, Jeff George was unemployed. Coaches like Dick Vermeil, Mike Ditka, and Mike Holmgren all said he wasn't a winner and wouldn't be considered despite their own bad QB situations. One coach nailed it. He's a traveling computer virus who keeps getting into different laptops. 7 teams in 12 years, 0 Pro Bowls, a 46-78 record as a starter. Same story everywhere he went. Former Falcons cornerback Vinnie Clark said what everyone saw on TV that night, he'd already seen plenty of times in the locker room. His own quarterback's coach said George worked out alone, way more than with other people. In Indianapolis, they said he ridiculed his offensive linemen. Though some guys defended him.
It's so cool. They don't bother him. He said he's heard it all through his career, so it doesn't bother him.
ESPN said George once claimed leadership was overrated. The QB position, that's all about leadership, and George didn't buy it. Then Minnesota took a chance on him as Randall Cunningham's backup. When Cunningham struggled, George stepped up and went crazy. He went 8-2 with around 23 TDs. Randy Moss caught passes from Tom Brady during an undefeated regular season and worked with Dante Culpepper in his prime. His favorite was still the guy everyone else couldn't stand. The connection was instant.
7, then George. Bing! He didn't even throw it hard, Tom.
I knew if I could just put it in the right area that he would put it into second gear and go get it, George said about Moss. George had finally found someone who liked his gift without asking him to change his personality. Over those 10 games, Moss caught 49 passes for over 920 yards and 8 TDs from George. 5 of those 8 TDs went for 30 or more yards. They'd watch film, work on routes, even go fishing. Best example was this game against San Diego. George hit Moss for a perfect 60-yard TD. Moss actually broke some 36-year-old Vikings record in those 2 games. Over 330 yards against Chicago and San Diego combined. Those 2 were just ridiculous together. Minnesota still let him walk after that magical season. He signed with Washington for big money, but the old habits returned. After poor play and more fights with coaches, the Redskins cut him following a brutal 37-0 Monday night loss to Green Bay. George never threw another pass after Washington, but teams kept taking chances on that arm. Seattle signed him as an emergency QB in 2002, never played a snap. Chicago gave him a deal in 2004, never took the field. Oakland brought him back in 2006, thought he'd compete for third string, then cut him after 5 days. Teams wanted that cannon, but nobody could deal with everything else that came with it. Brady called his arm elite. Moss loved him, but George's attitude destroyed what should have been a legendary career.